All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Wild Care. Sequoia's looking down. We today have our very special guest, Sequoia, the northern spotted owl, and of course, Melissa, our ambassador program manager. And today, Melissa has a very cool program set for us, learning about how owls hear. And if everybody, Emily, I see you're watching. If you could let me know if you can hear us. Teresa also, we're trying out a new microphone thing. If you can hear us, send me a thumbs up. On my phone. All right, take it away, Melissa.
Okay, so this is Sequoia. This is our ambassador, northern spotted owl. Sequoia is 15 years old, and she came to us from Larkspur. And what happened to her was she was hanging out in a tree and fell out of that tree and injured her wing on the way down.
That's when she was a baby, right?
When she was a baby.
She was still a little fluffy thing when she came in.
Yeah, a little fuzzball.
Yep.
And we tried really hard to get her back out into the wild, but she had too much damage to that wing, so she can't fly silently, which is one of the tools that they use to hunt their prey.
Sure.
So we started kind of throwing around different ideas of what we could do for Facebook Lives, and we were talking about skulls last time, and we thought it'd be a great idea to talk about the different senses and highlighting which species that we have that I think would be a great representation of that sense. So for today, we're going to talk about hearing and the northern spotted owl.
Excellent.
So birds actually hear a wider range of sound than we do, and that sound has a higher resolution or detail. Okay? And for every sound that we hear, they break it down into 10 different notes.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Right. So songbirds use it to recognize other birds. Okay? Owls use it to hunt down prey.
Of course.
And in fact, because she is nocturnal owls have the most hearing receptors in the brain as well. Okay? So her ears are actually just holes in the side of her head. Okay? And we have a great horned owl skull. And I can show you where one ear is right here, right behind that eye. Turn it around. All right,
sorry.
there.
The light's a little bit blinding. Sorry, everybody. Hang on. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so both ears right behind the eyes there.
Right behind the eyes. It's asymmetrical, their ears. So one ear is higher than the other ear. So one ear's up high, one ear's down low. So for her, this ear is up here and this one's down here. Okay?
Oh, interesting. So that seems like there's a bigger distance there between those ears than there is on that skull you're showing us.
Yeah, in fact, the barn owl has the best hearing of any land animal on the planet.
Okay.
And their ears are way more asymmetrical. So the more asymmetrical the ears, the better the hearing of the owl.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Now, how does the asymmetrical ear work? Is it sort of like, what is that? How does that work?
So the higher ear picks up one sound, and then the lower ear picks up the other part of the sound, and they match it up, called triangulation. It's the same way that we use GPS for our cell phones, right?
Okay,
you ping from one tower to another tower, and they can find out right where you're at. Okay?
Oh, good analogy. That makes perfect sense. Okay, so it's triangulation using that upper and lower ear. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, and it looks really funny because people are, they think they're dancing, but they kind of do this. This is their listening. We see a lot of videos of them doing this. So if they're doing this, they're listening.
She's looking at you. She's like, "What are you doing?"
She's like, "I do it way much better than that." Some other tools or adaptations that she has, of course, is this facial disc that adds also into the hearing of the owl. Okay? Her beak also is turned down in comparison to, let's say, a hawk's beak. If your beak is really far out there and you have sound waves come in, it's going to bounce off that beak.
Of course it is. That's so funny. So the owl's beak actually tips downward.
It tips downward because you don't want to have any interference on the face.
Sure, and I guess that makes
sound.
sense why the beak looks smaller too, because you're just seeing the front of it.
Yeah.
Let's look at the great horned owl beak again. His is pretty far forward, but it does have something of a downward slant.
Yeah, and then hers is just tipped down ever so slightly like that.
Right, and then the barn owl, you said, has an even
flatter like that.
Really? Oh, that's so interesting. We'll have to get a barn owl skull. I'd love to see that. That'd be so interesting.
Yeah, so that all goes into, having the best hearing of any land animal on the planet. 8 really, really asymmetrical ears, and then, of course, the beak turned all the way down. So what happens is when we have sound waves come in, these are my sound waves.
See your little face, Sequoia.
They don't bounce off the beak. She grabs that sound with those feathers and she moves them back individually. She's moving all this sound with the feathers, and you see the facial disc here. Okay? Those feathers are actually curved like that, so it creates a sound tunnel. So it travels and directs the sound back to her ears.
Oh, that's so interesting. So there's kind of a space then behind that facial disc right where the ears are.
Right, it's a sound tunnel.
It's a sound tunnel.
It's a sound tunnel. And what I think is always so amazing about owls, there's many features that are amazing, but how detailed and how different each feather is on their face. Like this feather is very straight, it's very thin, but these ones are a little bit more, have a lot more branching on them.
Sure.
These ones, of course, are curved, a little bit more solid. So each of these feathers, different specific feathers, all aid into bringing that sound up into their ears.
Oh, that's just fascinating.
And she even has feathers. Of course, she's sleeping.
Yes, because it's daytime for Sequoia.
And we're on Facebook, so that's when she likes
Honestly,
to sleep.
that's when she gets the most sleepy, exactly.
But she even has feathers on her eyelids there.
Yeah, I love that. That's so incredibly cool.
Yeah, so hearing, I mean, this is probably the best example of super power hearing that we have, which is important because her habitat is old redwood forest.
Right.
So mostly there's not a lot of people out there.
Right.
Right. So
unless you're at Muir Woods on a Sunday.
Yeah, unless you're at Muir Woods on a Sunday. But it's very, it's very dark. It's very quiet. If you were a mouse, you have great hearing as well. Right.
Right.
So they have to be able to compete that to hunt down their prey.
Oh, that's so just fascinating. You can kind of get a little bit of a glimpse of how those facial disc feathers curl backwards. Right there at the top of her head as she looks back away from us. Blink.
Yeah. Now she does actually, they don't have cartilage like we do, but they do have ear flaps. And those cover the ears just for debris and stuff.
Do they have a tympanic membrane? Do they have an eardrum? Okay.
So they have the same structures that we do in our ear, which is outer ear, middle ear, and inner ear.
Okay.
But that's...
but significantly more sensitive. David says, how do we attract owls to our yard?
Oh, well, we have owl boxes.
We do. The Hungry Owl Project, it's sort of on hiatus right now because of the COVID-19, but if you visit the website hungryowls.org, you can learn about, sorry, my mask makes me muffled. You can learn about our Owl Box program. Hungry Owl Project is now a program of wild care, and that is for barn owls. Not every property is appropriate for a barn owl box. They're very noisy. They're very, they make a big mess. They need a big open space. So if I live in a little suburban neighborhood, and that would not be appropriate for barn owls. But you can also get screech owl boxes, and again, we'll be selling those again starting in the fall. And so that nesting space is a really good way to attract an owl. The best thing you can do for owls in your yard is not use rat poison.
Yes.
I hope our entire audience knows this by now, but if you use rat poison that the rat ingests then proceeds to poison the owl or hawk or bobcat or raccoon that eats that rodent. It's called secondary poisoning, and it happens all the time. So the number one thing you can do to protect owls, especially in our suburban areas, is to not ever use rat poison, and to make sure that your neighbors are not either. Sure. So just a couple of really important thoughts there. And that's true for all of these guys. I know the northern spotted owl, Sequoia here, her favorite fruit is the dusky-footed wood rat.
Yes.
Right? Yep. And you don't usually get dusky-footed wood rats in your house. They live out in the oak woodlands and build these huge piles and pile nest, and they're just fascinating animals, but they are rodents, and rodenticide, rat poison, would kill them as well. And anytime you have an animal like this that eats rodents, the number one of the ways that these animals get sick and die is because of that exposure to rat poison.
Yeah, they can, especially barn owls. Barn owls are great for rodent population control.
They are.
And barn owls will actually breed in accordance to rodent populations. So if you give them time, they can take down a rodent population or get it more in balance.
Nice.
But that's just people, I know people want instant gratification and everything like that, but they actually, then this is what owls do. They create a balance, just like any other predator in the wild. They create a balance. And mostly likely in your neighborhoods, you'll have your screeches. You also have your great horned owls. But when people ask me, where do I find a hawk, where do I find an owl, to be honest, just look up.
Yeah, it's true. Very often they are just sitting on perches above you. It's pretty astonishing how often you can actually see an owl of a great number of different species if you just look up. So she's turning her head around. How far can she turn that head around?
270 degrees.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is amazing. It's not quite the full 360
Nope.
that everybody thinks. You can't turn your head all the way around, but 270 degrees is amazing. Yep.
And these guys are built to blend in or camouflage.
Sure.
So they say that, or scientists say that you're going to walk under at least 20 owls before you actually see one.
Oh, that's so
Because
funny.
They're so still and camouflaged, and they just
Sure.
turn the head.
Yep.
You know, and they're listening, and they have all these great adaptations that make them wonderful predators in
Yes.
the wild.
Now, one thing you can do is look for the droppings.
Yes.
We say that you're looking for whitewash because their droppings, the uric acid is the urates, those are white. So if you are walking in the forest and you look at the ground or on the sides of the trees, if you see a patch of white, that means that there is probably a raptor of some species that perches right up above where you are, and they are pooping.
Yes.
And so you'll know that they're up there, so you can very often kind of track them that way. When we're putting a baby raptor, hawk, or an owl back into the nest,
Yep.
after he's fallen out, that happens frequently. We do a reunite, and with the parent birds if the baby is healthy enough, and we often find the nest by looking for that whitewash. So that is a good way to be able to get a good look at maybe one of
Yes.
those 20 owls that you've walked under without knowing it.
Yeah, and you know, these guys do not sleep like we do. In fact, we'll probably do a little Facebook on how animals sleep.
Ooh, yes, let's do that.
But these guys take naps. Okay, so
Okay.
it's just because she's nocturnal does not mean that she's not awake during the day. So they take naps throughout the whole entire 24-hour period. So don't be surprised if you actually, you know, are walking around during the daytime and you see one.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They're just, like I said, they're just, they don't sleep like we do. So, which is why she's up right now, because we just happened to catch her when she's not taking a nap.
Not taking a
And
nap.
she's actually more awake today, so
Yes.
that is great. So
Our
we
other
must-
lives with Sequoia,
Yeah.
she's been so sleepy.
Yeah.
Well, Melissa, this has been fascinating. Thank you for
you.
teaching us, and Sequoia, thank you for teaching us about how owls hear. Some very interesting facts, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Everybody stay healthy. We'll be back on Friday for another live stream, and looking forward to seeing everyone then. Take care.